My son called me a failure at his mother's funeral. I'm David Johnson, and I'm about to tell you why that was the biggest mistake of his life. You see, Kevin thought he knew the whole story about TechFlow Systems, how his brilliant mother built a $45 million tech empire while his deadbeat dad taught computer basics at community college. But when that estate lawyer started reading Mom's will, Kevin's world was about to flip upside down, because sometimes the most important truths are the ones hidden in plain sight. I stayed calm that day. Didn't argue, didn't defend myself, just listened as my own son told 200 people that I was everything wrong with his generation. No ambition, no vision, no success to show for my life. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I guarantee you've never heard a story quite like this one. It all started back in 1995, when I had an idea that would change everything. 29 years ago, I was working nights at a computer repair shop in Richardson, Texas, making $11 an hour. During the day, I was coding in my garage, building something I called TechFlow Systems. The idea was simple: help small businesses manage their inventory through cloud-based software. Nobody was talking about the cloud back then. Most people thought I was crazy. Linda was pregnant with Kevin. She'd come home from her job at the bank and find me surrounded by cables, monitors, and notebooks filled with diagrams she couldn't understand. "What are you building out there, David?" she'd ask. "The future," I'd tell her. And I meant it. By 1998, I had my first client, a plumbing supply company in Dallas. They paid me $300 a month to manage their inventory. Within 6 months, I had 12 clients. By 2000, I had 87. Linda quit her bank job in 2001. I needed someone to handle the business side while I focused on development. She was smart, organized, and people trusted her. More importantly, she believed in what we were building. Kevin was 6 years old when TechFlow hit our first $1 million in annual revenue. He'd sit in our home office coloring while Linda took client calls. To him, Mom was the one on the phone making deals. Dad was the guy in the garage with the computers. I didn't mind. I was busy building, creating. Every line of code, every system architecture decision, every technical innovation, that was me. Linda handled sales, marketing, and client relations. We were a team. But Kevin only saw what happened in the office. He never understood what happened in the garage. The divorce hit in 2010. 15 years of marriage ended over what Linda called growing apart. The settlement was brutal. She got the house, 80% of the company, and primary custody of Kevin. I got my garage, 20% ownership, and weekends. "It's fair, David," her lawyer said. "Linda built the client relationships. She's the public face of TechFlow." I signed the papers. What choice did I have? Within a year, Linda moved Kevin to a private school in North Dallas, $42,000 a year. She bought a new BMW, upgraded the office downtown, started calling herself CEO and founder on her business cards. I moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in Plano, started teaching part-time at Collin County Community College. 3 classes a week, $2,800 a month. My students thought I was just another washed-up tech guy who couldn't make it in the real world. Kevin visited every other weekend until he turned 16. Then it was once a month, then holidays, then just Christmas, if I was lucky. "Dad, you need to get serious about your life," he told me during his senior year of high school. "Look at Mom. She's built something real." TechFlow was worth $12 million by then. Linda had expanded into 3 states, hired 47 employees, and was featured on the cover of Dallas Business Journal as Entrepreneur of the Year. The article called her a visionary who saw the future of cloud computing before anyone else. I read that article sitting in my apartment eating microwave dinner. My 20% stake was worth $2.4 million on paper, but Linda's salary and expansion costs meant I never saw dividends. Just quarterly statements showing how successful her company was becoming. Kevin graduated from SMU with honors, MBA from Northwestern, started working at TechFlow in 2018 as Director of Strategic Development, 26 years old, making more money than I'd ever seen. Last month, he bought a Tesla Model S, $95,000. Posted about it on LinkedIn. Grateful for everything my mother taught me about building success from nothing. The funeral was 3 weeks ago. Lung cancer. Linda fought it for 8 months but lost. Kevin organized everything. The service, the flowers, the reception. I sat in the back, listening to people talk about what an amazing businesswoman Linda had been. That's when Kevin made his speech. "My mother was a pioneer," Kevin said, standing at the podium in St. Matthew's Methodist Church. "She built TechFlow Systems from nothing. $45 million in annual revenue, 230 employees across 4 states, A true American success story. 200 people nodded and applauded. Linda's employees, clients, business partners, they all knew the official story. Brilliant woman builds tech empire while deadbeat husband teaches computers to teenagers. Kevin looked directly at me during the next part. Some people in this room gave up on their dreams, got comfortable with failure, settled for less. He paused for effect. My mother never settled. She never gave up. She showed me that success isn't about making excuses. It's about making things happen. The room was silent. Everyone knew he was talking about me, the failed entrepreneur, the cautionary tale, the man who lost everything in divorce court and never recovered. TechFlow Systems will continue Mom's legacy, Kevin continued. Her vision, her values, her commitment to excellence. That's what real leadership looks like. After the service, people avoided me. Polite nods, brief condolences, then quick exits. Nobody wanted to be seen talking to the guy Kevin had just humiliated in public. But the stakes were bigger than embarrassment. Linda's will was being read Tuesday morning at Williams & Associates law firm. Everyone expected Kevin to inherit everything. The company, the house in North Dallas, the investment accounts, the life insurance policies. $45 million, give or take. My 20% stake in TechFlow would probably transfer to Kevin too. Linda had mentioned something about simplifying ownership structure during one of our rare conversations last year. If that happened, I'd lose my only connection to the company I'd built. The quarterly statements would stop coming. The tiny income I got from my ownership share would disappear. At 61 years old, I'd be completely dependent on my community college salary and whatever Social Security kicked in at 67. But money wasn't the real issue. It was history, legacy, truth. For 14 years, I'd watched Linda take credit for my life's work. Watched Kevin grow up believing his father was a loser who couldn't build anything worth keeping. Watched my own son develop the kind of arrogance that comes from thinking success was handed down from one generation to the next, like eye color or height. Kevin had no idea what it took to write the original TechFlow code. He'd never spent 3 months debugging an inventory management algorithm or designed a database schema that could scale from 10 clients to 10,000. He'd never mortgaged his house to buy server equipment or worked 18-hour days to meet a deadline that could make or break the company. All Kevin knew was that Mom had money, and Dad didn't. Mom got invited to business conferences, and Dad taught Introduction to Microsoft Excel. Mom drove a BMW, and Dad drove a 2018 Toyota Camry with 89,000 miles. The will reading was scheduled for 10 a.m. Tuesday. Kevin had already told his assistant to prepare a press release announcing his new role as CEO and majority owner. He'd scheduled meetings with 3 major clients for Wednesday morning, posted on social media about carrying forward Mom's incredible legacy. But Kevin had no idea what Mom's will actually said. Nobody did except Linda and her attorney, Sarah Williams. I'd met Sarah once, briefly, at a Christmas party in 2019. She'd pulled me aside and asked an odd question. David, do you still have any of your original development notes from the early days of TechFlow? Of course, I'd said. Why? Just curious. Linda mentioned you were quite the innovator back then. At the time, I thought it was small talk. But Sarah's question stuck with me. Why would Linda's estate attorney care about my old programming notes? 3 days after the funeral, I got a call from Michael Davis, TechFlow's chief technology officer. Michael had been with the company for 22 years. He was one of my first hires, back when the entire engineering team fit around my kitchen table. David, I need to talk to you, Michael said. Can we meet somewhere private? We met at a Starbucks near my apartment. Michael looked nervous, like he was about to confess to a crime. I've been keeping something for Linda, he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. She made me promise not to give this to you until after the funeral. Inside were photocopies of emails between Linda and Sarah Williams, dating back 18 months. The subject line on the first email made my breath catch. Correcting the record, TechFlow's true founder. But the stakes went deeper than money or recognition. They went to the heart of who Kevin thought he was, and who he thought I was. For 29 years, he'd built his identity around having a successful mother and a failed father. Tuesday morning's will reading was about to test everything Kevin believed about success, family, and the difference between building something real and just taking credit for it. The day after Linda's funeral, Kevin showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was grading midterm exams for my Introduction to Database Management course when I heard his Tesla pull into the parking lot. We need to talk, Dad. I invited him in. He stood in my living room, taking in the second-hand furniture, the stack of community college textbooks, the framed photo of him at age 8, the only picture I had displayed. "This place is depressing," he said. "It's home." Kevin walked to my kitchen window, which overlooked the apartment complex's small pool. 2 kids were playing in the shallow end while their mother scrolled through her phone. "You know what I realized at Mom's funeral?" he said, not turning around. "I spent my whole childhood making excuses for you." "Excuse me?" "When my friends asked what my dad did for a living, I'd say you were in computers. Like that meant something. Like you were Steve Jobs instead of a guy who teaches Excel to high school dropouts. I kept grading papers. Stayed calm. Your mother built a good life for you, Kevin. Mom built everything we had. The house, the company, the respect. You?" He turned around, looked me straight in the eye. "You had one job, Dad. Provide for your family, and you failed." That's one way to see it. It's the only way to see it. Look around. Kevin gestured at my apartment. 2 bedrooms, used furniture, a 12-year-old television. This is what failure looks like. I set down my red pen. "What do you want, Kevin?" "I want you to understand something before the will reading Tuesday. TechFlow is mine now. Mom's legacy is mine to protect, and that means maintaining the company's reputation." "Meaning what?" "Meaning no more stories about the good old days when you had some involvement in the business. No more suggestions that you contributed anything meaningful to TechFlow's success. Mom built that company despite your limitations, not because of your help." Kevin pulled out his phone, showed me a LinkedIn post he'd been drafting. "Honored to continue my mother's vision as the new CEO of TechFlow Systems. Her entrepreneurial spirit and business acumen created something truly special. Looking forward to building on the foundation she established." "Sounds appropriate," I said. "Here's what's not appropriate. My father claiming he had anything to do with TechFlow's success. Because frankly, Dad, it's embarrassing." "For who?" "For me. For Mom's memory. For the 230 people who work at TechFlow and believe they're part of something bigger than a divorce settlement and alimony payments." I leaned back in my chair. "You think that's what TechFlow is? Alimony?" "I think it's what you turned it into. Mom could have divorced you clean, taken half the assets, moved on. Instead, she let you keep 20% of the company out of pity. 20% of something you had no hand in building. Is that what she told you? That's what I saw with my own eyes for 15 years. Mom in boardrooms making deals. Mom on magazine covers. Mom winning awards for innovation and leadership. You?" Kevin laughed, but it wasn't friendly. "You grading papers and living in an apartment complex." I stood up, walked to my kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. Took my time. Let Kevin's words hang in the air. "You know what I remember about TechFlow's early days?" I said finally. "Dad, don't." "I remember writing the first line of code in 1995. I remember designing the original database architecture. I remember staying up until 3 a.m. debugging the inventory tracking algorithm that made our first client happy enough to pay us. Mom told me about your contributions, basic programming work, technical stuff, but building a business requires vision, leadership, strategic thinking. That was Mom." "Technical stuff," I repeated. "Yeah, the easy part, the part that any decent programmer could handle. Mom handled the hard part, turning your hobby into a real business." Kevin's phone buzzed. A text message. He glanced at it, typed a quick response. "That was Mike Davis," he said. "TechFlow's CTO. He's setting up meetings for Wednesday morning so I can transition into the CEO role smoothly. Mike's been great about respecting Mom's leadership over the years." "Michael's a good man." "He understands what real leadership looks like. He's seen Mom turn your little side project into a multi-state operation worth $45 million. $47 million, actually," I said, "as of the last quarterly report." Kevin stopped typing. "How would you know that?" "I still get the financials. 20% ownership, remember?" "Right, your pity shares." Kevin put his phone away. "Well, enjoy this last quarterly report, Dad. After Tuesday, your involvement in TechFlow ends permanently." "Linda told you that?" "Linda didn't need to tell me anything. It's common sense. You can't have a failed entrepreneur dragging down a successful company's reputation. Bad for morale, bad for business." Kevin headed toward the door, then turned back. "One more thing. After I take over, I don't want you contacting any TechFlow employees. No calls to Mike Davis, no emails to the accounting department, no visits to the office. Clean break. And if I disagree, then you'll learn what it feels like to be on the wrong side of a restraining order." After Kevin left, I sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, thinking about that conversation, about the arrogance in his voice, the certainty that he understood how the world worked, and I didn't. Kevin had no idea what Tuesday's will reading would reveal, but I was starting to get a pretty good sense that Linda had been planning something for a very long time. The manila envelope from Michael Davis was still on my kitchen table. I hadn't opened it yet. Maybe it was time. The envelope from Michael Davis contained 8 pages of emails between Linda and her attorney, Sarah Williams, dating back to April 2023. The first email had the subject line that made me read it 3 times, correcting the record, TechFlow's true founder. Linda had written, "Sarah, I need to discuss something that's been weighing on me since my diagnosis. Kevin believes I built TechFlow systems from scratch. The business community believes it. Even our employees believe it. But it's not true, and I can't let that lie define my son's inheritance. David was TechFlow's true founder. The original concept, the programming, the technical architecture, all of it came from him. I handled sales and administration, but the company exists because of David's vision and innovation. I need my will to reflect this truth. Kevin needs to understand what real entrepreneurship looks like." I read that email 4 times before moving to Sarah's response. "Linda, this is a significant decision. Are you certain you want to restructure your estate based on contributions from 25 years ago? Kevin has been assuming he'll inherit controlling interest in TechFlow." Linda's reply was dated 3 days later. "I'm dying, Sarah. Lung cancer doesn't care about Kevin's assumptions. What matters is truth. David built TechFlow. Kevin needs to learn that success isn't inherited. It's earned through vision, sacrifice, and genuine contribution. Please prepare documentation that accurately reflects TechFlow's founding history. I want everything spelled out clearly." The final email in the stack was from Sarah to Linda, dated January 15th, 6 weeks before Linda died. Documentation complete. "I've prepared a comprehensive historical record of TechFlow's founding, including David's original patents, source code repositories, and business development notes. Michael Davis has agreed to serve as technical witness if needed. Your son is going to be very surprised." I set the emails down, walked to my bedroom closet, and pulled out a box I hadn't opened in 5 years. Inside were my original TechFlow development notes. Hundreds of pages of handwritten algorithms, database schemas, and system specifications. Code I'd written at my kitchen table in 1995, when Kevin was 3 years old and Linda was working at First National Bank. Each page was dated and signed. Each innovation was documented in my handwriting. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Michael Davis. "Did you read Linda's emails?" he asked. "Just finished." "David, there's something else you need to know. Last month, Linda asked me to compile a complete technical history of TechFlow's development. Every patent filing, every major code release, every architectural decision from 1995 to 2010. Why? She said Kevin deserved to know who really built the company he was about to inherit." Michael paused. I could hear traffic in the background. He was calling from his car. "I've been TechFlow's CTO for 22 years, he said. "I was there when you designed the original inventory management system. I was there when you solved the scaling problems in 1998. I was there when you developed the client portal interface that made us competitive with companies 10 times our size." "Michael, Linda was brilliant at business development and client relations, but she wasn't a programmer, David. She couldn't read code if her life depended on it. Everything technical about TechFlow, everything that made the company actually work, came from you." "Then why didn't you say something over the years?" "Say what? Linda was my boss. Kevin was being groomed as her successor. You had 20% ownership and seemed content teaching college courses. It wasn't my place to rewrite company history." Another pause. "But Linda made it my place 3 weeks ago." "What do you mean?" "She asked me to attend Tuesday's will reading as a technical witness. Sarah Williams wants me to verify the authenticity of your original development work." I sat down heavily on my couch. Kevin's going to be blindsided. Kevin's going to learn what his father actually contributed to his family's success. Maybe that's what he needs. After Michael hung up, I made myself coffee and spread the contents of my development box across the kitchen table. Patent applications for cloud-based inventory management, dated March 1996. Database optimization algorithms, written in my handwriting, dated August 1997. Client interface specifications, signed and dated December 1999. 25 original patents, all with my name as primary inventor. All filed during TechFlow's crucial early development period. I'd forgotten about most of these documents. During the divorce proceedings, Linda's attorney had focused on financial contributions and business operations. Nobody asked about patents or intellectual property. The assumption was that a small tech company wouldn't have significant IP value. They were wrong. By 2024, those 25 patents were worth approximately $8 million in licensing revenue alone. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Mr. Johnson, this is Thomas Miller from Miller & Associates Patent Law. Sarah Williams asked me to contact you regarding Tuesday's will reading. I've been Linda's intellectual property attorney since 2019. We need to discuss your original TechFlow patents before the estate meeting. I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Linda hadn't just corrected the record about TechFlow's founding. She'd built a case, assembled witnesses, gathered evidence, prepared for a revelation that would change everything Kevin thought he knew about his parents, his inheritance, and himself. Kevin thought Tuesday would be a formality, signing papers and taking control of his mother's business empire. He had no idea he was walking into the most important history lesson of his life. The call came at 7 a.m. Monday morning. Kevin's assistant, Jennifer, was organizing a TechFlow leadership meeting for Tuesday afternoon, right after the will reading. Mr. Johnson, she said, Kevin asked me to extend an invitation to you. He thought you might want to attend TechFlow's transition planning meeting as a final gesture of respect for Mrs. Johnson's memory. What kind of meeting? Kevin will be announcing his strategic vision for the company's future. Board members, department heads, key clients, about 40 people total. I almost said no, but something in Jennifer's tone suggested this wasn't just courtesy. Kevin was planning something public. What time Tuesday? 2 p.m. The main conference room at TechFlow headquarters. Kevin specifically requested that you sit in the front row. After Jennifer hung up, I understood Kevin's strategy. He was setting up a performance, a public demonstration of his new authority, with his failed father in the audience as a cautionary tale. Look at what success looks like. Look at what failure looks like. Learn the difference. I drove to TechFlow's headquarters Monday afternoon to confirm what I suspected. The building had changed since my last visit 2 years ago. Bigger parking lot, expanded office space, a glass lobby with Linda's portrait prominently displayed next to the words founder and visionary leader. The receptionist didn't recognize me, but she was friendly enough to give me a visitor's badge and let me walk around the first floor. The company timeline wall was new, a chronological display of TechFlow's founding and growth under Linda Johnson's leadership. According to the display, TechFlow was established in 1995 by entrepreneur Linda Johnson, who recognized the potential of cloud-based business solutions before they became industry standard. My name appeared once in small print. Technical support provided by David Johnson, 1,995 to 2,010 inches. Technical support. 25 patents, 18-hour workdays, and 5 years of garage-based development had been reduced to technical support. I took photos of the timeline with my phone. Then I noticed Michael Davis walking toward me from the elevator. I was hoping you'd come by, he said. There's something you need to see. Michael led me to the second floor, to TechFlow's original development lab, the same room where I'd trained our first 3 programmers in 1998. Kevin's been making changes, Michael said, opening the door. The lab had been converted into a shrine to Linda's business achievements, awards, magazine covers, photographs of ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and client appreciation events. A glass display case held copies of contracts Linda had negotiated, press releases she'd approved, and business plans she'd signed. But in the center of the room was something that made me stop cold. My original development computer from 1995. A beige desktop tower I'd built myself, surrounded by plaques describing it as the workstation where Linda Johnson developed TechFlow's revolutionary inventory management system. Kevin had this installed last week, Michael said. He's planning to give a speech tomorrow about his mother's innovative programming skills and technical genius. I stared at that computer. I remembered buying every component, the motherboard, the graphics card, the hard drives, remembered installing Linux and configuring the development environment, remembered writing the first 1,000 lines of TechFlow code on that exact machine. Linda couldn't program a digital clock, I said. I know, but Kevin doesn't. He genuinely believes his mother was a technical innovator. Where did he get that idea? 15 years of carefully managed narrative. Linda never explicitly claimed to be a programmer, but she never corrected people who assumed she was. And Kevin only saw the public version of company history. Michael pulled out his phone, showed me a screenshot of TechFlow's updated website. The About Us page featured Linda's photo above a biography that described her as a pioneer in cloud computing and database management, whose innovative technical solutions transformed how small businesses manage inventory and customer relationships. "This went live yesterday," Michael said. I scrolled through Linda's bio, reading claims about her groundbreaking programming work and visionary technical leadership. It was fiction, but it was convincing fiction. Well written, professionally presented, officially endorsed by TechFlow's current leadership. "Kevin's planning to announce tomorrow that he's carrying forward his mother's technical legacy," Michael continued. "He's hired 2 new developers to work on what he's calling the Linda Johnson Advanced Systems Project. $50,000 in development budget. To do what?" "Build next-generation inventory management tools using his mother's original algorithms." I almost laughed. Kevin can't read code. "No, but he can hire people who can. Except the programmers he hired don't know they're being asked to reverse engineer systems they think Linda designed. They're trying to decode your 25-year-old algorithms and figure out how Linda's innovative technical approach actually worked." "That's insane. That's Tuesday afternoon's big announcement. Kevin's going to unveil the Linda Johnson Advanced Systems Project in front of 40 industry professionals. He's going to claim he's building on his mother's programming innovations." Michael walked me back toward the elevator. "The developers have been struggling for 3 weeks to understand the system architecture. They keep asking me questions about Linda's programming methodology and development process." "What do you tell them?" "I tell them to ask Kevin. Kevin tells them to figure it out themselves. That's what real innovators do." As we reached the lobby, Kevin walked through the front door. He was dressed for a business meeting. Navy suit, red tie, leather briefcase. He saw me talking to Michael and his expression hardened. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Jennifer invited me to tomorrow's transition meeting." "I meant, what are you doing here today?" "Reminiscing," I said, looking at the company timeline. Interesting version of TechFlow's history. Kevin glanced at the timeline display, then back at me. Accurate version, based on documented facts and business records. "I'm sure it is." "Is there a problem, Dad?" "No problem. Just wondering if you've seen my original development notes lately." "What development notes?" "The ones from 1995 to 2010. Algorithm specifications, patent applications, source code documentation, the technical foundation for everything TechFlow became." Kevin's jaw tightened. "I've seen Linda's business development records, strategic plans, client acquisition reports, financial projections, the real foundation for TechFlow's success." "Of course." "Michael, don't you have work to do?" Michael nodded politely and headed back toward the elevator. Kevin waited until Michael was gone before stepping closer to me. "Tomorrow is about honoring Mom's memory and securing TechFlow's future," he said quietly. "It's not about relitigating ancient history or letting anyone confuse the narrative with irrelevant technical details. Understood?" "I hope so. Because if you try to embarrass me or undermine my leadership transition, you'll discover that 20% ownership doesn't protect you from a defamation lawsuit." Kevin adjusted his tie, checked his phone, and walked toward the elevator. "See you tomorrow, Dad. Try not to disappoint me." Tuesday morning, Williams & Associates law firm, 47th floor. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Dallas. Kevin arrived 15 minutes early, wearing his best suit and carrying a leather folder containing press releases announcing his new role as TechFlow's CEO. I sat across from him at the mahogany conference table. Between us were Sarah Williams, Michael Davis, patent attorney Thomas Miller, and Linda's accountant, Robert Taylor. Kevin had brought his corporate attorney, James Morrison, just to be safe. "Before we begin," Sarah said, "I want everyone to understand that Linda Johnson spent considerable time preparing this will. She was very specific about how she wanted her assets distributed and why." Kevin nodded confidently. "Mom was always thorough." Sarah opened Linda's file, 3 inches thick, organized with colored tabs and handwritten notes. Linda's primary concern was ensuring that TechFlow systems continued under leadership that understood the company's true founding principles. "Absolutely," Kevin said. "That's why she groomed me for succession over the past 5 years." "Actually, Kevin, that's not quite accurate." Sarah pulled out a sealed envelope marked, "To be read aloud in full." She broke the wax seal and unfolded a 3-page letter handwritten in Linda's careful script. "This is Linda's final statement regarding her estate and her wishes for TechFlow systems. She insisted I read it verbatim." Kevin leaned forward, pen ready to take notes. Sarah began reading. To my son Kevin, my ex-husband David, and all gathered witnesses, I am dying and I need to correct a lie that has defined my family for too long. TechFlow Systems was not my creation. I was not a technical innovator or programming pioneer. I could not write a line of code to save my life. The truth is that David Johnson, my ex-husband, Kevin's father, built TechFlow from nothing while I handled administrative duties and client relations. David designed every algorithm. David wrote every line of original code. David held every patent. David turned a garage-based idea into a multi-million-dollar technology platform that I took credit for during our marriage and continued taking credit for after our divorce. Kevin's pen stopped moving. What? Sarah continued reading. I allowed this fiction to continue because it was easier than admitting I had divorced a brilliant entrepreneur and taken 80% of his life's work through legal manipulation. Kevin grew up believing his mother was a business genius and his father was a failure. That lie ends today. David Johnson is the true founder of TechFlow Systems. Every technical innovation, every competitive advantage, every patent that made TechFlow profitable, all of it came from David's mind and David's work. Kevin looked at me, then at Sarah, then back at the letter. This is impossible. Dad teaches community college. He lives in an apartment. If he built TechFlow, why isn't he rich? I said quietly. Because your mother got 80% in the divorce. Because I signed papers giving up control of the company I created. Sarah turned to the second page. I am restructuring my estate to reflect TechFlow's true ownership. David Johnson will receive my 80% controlling interest in TechFlow Systems, plus my personal assets, investments, and life insurance policies. Kevin Johnson will receive $1 in this letter, along with my hope that he will learn to respect the father he has spent 15 years underestimating. The room went silent. Kevin stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. Wait, he said finally. Wait, this isn't... Mom built TechFlow. She won awards. She was on magazine covers. Thomas Miller opened his briefcase and placed a stack of documents on the table. These are the original patent applications for TechFlow's core technologies. 25 patents filed between 1995 and 2008. All list David Johnson as primary inventor. Kevin grabbed the patent documents, flipping through them frantically. These could be fake. Anyone can file patents. Mr. Johnson, Sarah said, would you like to verify your identity as TechFlow's technical founder? I reached into my briefcase and pulled out my original development notebook from 1995. Handwritten algorithms, database schemas, system specifications, all dated and signed before TechFlow Incorporated. Algorithm for cloud-based inventory tracking, I said, opening to a page dated March 12, 1995. Database optimization for client portal access. Client interface specifications for small business applications. I turned the notebook toward Kevin. This is your mother's technical genius, written in my handwriting in my garage 6 months before we hired our first employee. Michael Davis cleared his throat. Kevin, I've been at TechFlow for 22 years. I worked directly with your father on every major technical project until 2010. Your mother handled sales and administration brilliantly, but she never wrote code or designed systems. Kevin looked around the table, searching for someone to contradict what he was hearing. You're all lying. Mom built TechFlow. I watched her build it. You watched her run it, I said. There's a difference. Robert Taylor, Linda's accountant, placed another document on the table. Mrs. Johnson's financial records show that Mr. Johnson contributed $280,000 in initial capital, development equipment, and unpaid labor between 1995 and 1998. She contributed $47,000 in administrative support. But Mom was CEO for 14 years. She grew the company from 12 employees to 230. She expanded into 4 states. Your mother was an excellent business operator, Sarah said. But she wasn't the founder. That distinction belongs to your father. Sarah turned to the final page of Linda's letter. Kevin, you have spent your adult life believing that success is inherited and failure is permanent. You have treated your father with contempt because you thought his circumstances reflected his character. Today you will learn that circumstances can be changed by legal documents, but character is revealed through actions. Your father built something extraordinary from nothing. I took credit for it. Now I am returning what was always rightfully his. What you do with this knowledge will determine whether you have inherited my capacity for growth or simply my capacity for pride. Kevin sat back in his chair, staring at the conference table. $45 million. The house. The investment accounts, all of it? All of it, Sarah confirmed. Your father is now the majority owner of TechFlow Systems and the primary beneficiary of your mother's estate. Kevin looked at me for a long moment. You knew, yesterday, when you came to TechFlow. You knew this was coming. I suspected. Your mother had been planning this for 18 months. And you said nothing. What would you have believed? That the failed entrepreneur living in an apartment complex was actually the technical founder of a $45 million company? Kevin had no answer for that. Sarah placed a final document on the table. Mr. Johnson, these are the papers transferring legal control of TechFlow Systems to you, effective immediately. You are now chairman and CEO. I signed the papers while Kevin watched in silence. 24 years after losing control of my own company, I was getting it back. But the victory felt hollow. Kevin looked devastated, confused, like everything he'd believed about himself and his family had just been proven wrong. One more thing, Sarah said to Kevin. Your mother included a personal note for you. She handed Kevin a smaller envelope. He opened it with shaking hands and read silently. After a moment, Kevin looked up at me. She says you deserve an apology. Do you agree? Kevin folded the note carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. I need time to think about this. 2 hours after the will reading, I walked into TechFlow's headquarters as the new owner. The lobby felt different, smaller somehow, less intimidating. The portrait of Linda as founder and visionary leader would need updating. Jennifer, Kevin's assistant, met me at the security desk. She looked confused but professional. Mr. Johnson, Kevin asked me to cancel this afternoon's transition meeting. He said there were complications with the estate settlement. The meeting is still happening, I said, but with a different agenda. I rode the elevator to the second floor, walked into the conference room where 40 TechFlow employees, board members, and key clients were waiting. Kevin wasn't there yet. Michael Davis was setting up a presentation screen. He nodded at me as I took my place at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, thank you for coming. I know you expected to hear from Kevin Johnson today about TechFlow's future under his leadership. Murmurs around the table. A few people checked their phones. Instead, you're going to hear from me. My name is David Johnson. Some of you know me as Kevin's father, Linda's ex-husband, or the guy who used to own 20% of this company. I paused, looked around the room. Curious faces, polite attention. What you might not know is that I founded TechFlow Systems in 1995. I wrote the original code, designed the database architecture, and developed the core technologies that made this company profitable. The murmurs got louder. Board member Patricia Stevens raised her hand. I'm sorry, but Linda Johnson was TechFlow's founder. That's been established company history for 24 years of incorrect company history, I said. As of this morning, I own controlling interest in TechFlow Systems. Linda's will transferred her 80% stake back to me, along with documented proof of my role as the company's technical founder. I nodded at Michael, who activated the presentation screen. The first slide showed my original TechFlow patent applications, dated 1996. 25 patents for cloud-based inventory management, database optimization, and client interface design, all filed under my name between 1995 and 2008. The room was completely quiet now. Second slide. Photographs of my handwritten development notes from 1995 showing algorithm specifications and system architecture diagrams. The technical foundation for everything TechFlow became, written in my garage while Linda handled administrative tasks. Third slide. Email correspondence between Linda and her attorney, confirming her decision to correct the record about TechFlow's founding. Linda spent 18 months preparing to transfer ownership back to the company's actual creator. She felt it was important that Kevin and all of you understand who really built TechFlow. Kevin walked into the conference room as I was displaying the fourth slide. He looked pale, shaken. He took a seat in the back row without making eye contact with anyone. I understand this is shocking information, I continued. For 14 years, you've known Linda as TechFlow's founder and me as her failed ex-husband. That narrative was convenient but inaccurate. Board member James Murphy cleared his throat. Mr. Johnson, with respect, Linda Johnson successfully operated this company for over a decade. Regardless of the founding circumstances, her leadership grew TechFlow from a small startup to a major regional business. Absolutely correct, I said. Linda was an exceptional business operator. She deserves full credit for TechFlow's growth and client development, but business operations and founding innovation are different contributions. I clicked to the next slide. TechFlow's current organizational chart. Effective immediately, I'm resuming the role of chairman and CEO. Kevin Johnson will continue as Director of Strategic Development, reporting to me. Michael Davis remains Chief Technology Officer. All other positions and reporting relationships remain unchanged. Patricia Stevens looked concerned. What about the projects Kevin has been developing? The Linda Johnson Advanced Systems Initiative. I glanced at Kevin, who was staring at his hands. That project is being suspended. The developers were attempting to reverse engineer algorithms they thought Linda had designed. Since I designed those algorithms, we can achieve better results through direct collaboration. I turned to address Kevin directly. Kevin, your business development skills are valuable to TechFlow's continued success. I hope you'll choose to stay with the company and learn the technical side of what we do. Kevin looked up for the first time since entering the room. Learn from who? From me. From Michael. From the systems I built and you never understood. The room was tense, waiting to see how Kevin would respond. What if I say no? Kevin asked. Then you'll leave TechFlow with excellent business experience and strong recommendations. But you'll also leave without understanding how the technology that supported your entire career actually works. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What would that training involve? Learning to read code, understanding database architecture, seeing how the algorithms you've been selling actually solve client problems. You'd teach me programming? I'd teach you to understand the technical foundation your mother built her business success on, the foundation I created. Kevin nodded slowly. Okay, I'll stay. The rest of the meeting covered transition logistics, client communications, and staff reassignments. Professional, businesslike, focused on continuity rather than drama. After everyone left, Kevin and I were alone in the conference room. This is going to take time, he said. Accepting that everything I thought I knew about our family was wrong. I understand. Mom's note said I should be proud of you instead of ashamed. Said you were the most innovative person she ever met. Your mother was generous in her final assessment. Kevin gathered his papers, headed toward the door. Then he turned back. Dad, tomorrow could you show me some of that original code? I'd like to understand what you actually built. For the first time in 24 years, my son looked at me with curiosity instead of contempt. I'd be happy to, Kevin. Within 48 hours of the will reading, word spread throughout Dallas's tech community that TechFlow Systems had experienced a dramatic ownership change involving previously unknown founding circumstances. The story was too strange and too well documented to suppress. Kevin's LinkedIn post announcing his mother's technical legacy project was quietly deleted. His connections started asking uncomfortable questions about his family history and his understanding of TechFlow's origins. 3 key clients called for meetings to discuss leadership continuity concerns. They'd been working with Linda for years and weren't sure what David Johnson's return meant for their service contracts. I spent Thursday morning at Meridian Supply Company, TechFlow's 3rd largest client. Owner Tom Bradley had known Linda since 2003 and was skeptical about the ownership transition. David, no offense, but Linda presented herself as TechFlow's technical founder for over a decade, Tom said. She spoke at industry conferences about cloud computing innovation. She consulted on our database migration project. How do we know she wasn't just giving you credit to smooth over family issues? I brought my laptop and opened TechFlow's original source code repository. This is the inventory management algorithm your company has been using since 2005. Written by me in 1998, optimized in 2003, updated for cloud integration in 2007. I scrolled through thousands of lines of code, all tagged with my developer signature and timestamps. Every function, every optimization, every security protocol, all documented under my name in the development logs. Tom studied the screen for several minutes. Linda never showed us technical documentation. She explained business benefits and implementation strategies. Because Linda understood business applications but couldn't read the underlying code, she was brilliant at translating technical capabilities into client solutions. So you're saying she was a salesperson, not an engineer? I'm saying she was both. Sales, business development, strategic planning, those are engineering skills too. Linda engineered TechFlow's business success using the technical platform I created. By Friday, Michael Davis reported that staff morale was surprisingly stable. Most TechFlow employees had never thought much about the company's founding history. They cared about job security, project continuity, and leadership competence. The younger programmers are actually excited, Michael told me. They want to learn from someone who built systems that are still running 25 years later. But Kevin was struggling publicly. His industry reputation had been built on being Linda Johnson's son and heir. Professional contacts who treated him as TechFlow's future leader were now uncertain about his qualifications and role. Jennifer scheduled a one-on-one meeting between Kevin and myself for the following Monday. Kevin looked exhausted when he walked into my new office, Linda's old office, which I had inherited, along with everything else. "I've been thinking about Mom's letter," Kevin said. "She wrote that I treated you with contempt because I thought circumstances reflected character. That's a fair assessment. She also wrote that character is revealed through actions, not circumstances." Kevin sat down across from my desk, the same desk where Linda had made business decisions for 14 years. "My actions toward you were pretty terrible, weren't they? You believed what you'd been told. That's understandable." "No, Dad. I chose to believe the worst version of who you were because it made me feel better about myself. That's not understandable. That's just arrogant." Kevin pulled out his phone, showed me a text conversation with his girlfriend Emma. She'd broken up with him Tuesday night after learning about the inheritance reversal. Emma said she was dating Linda Johnson's son, not David Johnson's son. Apparently that makes a difference for her social circle. I read the text exchange. Emma's messages were cold, focused on Kevin's changed financial prospects and misleading family narrative. "I'm sorry, Kevin." "Don't be. Emma was dating my inheritance, not me. Better to find out now." Kevin put his phone away. "I've been wondering about something. When you were building TechFlow in the garage, what did you think success would look like?" "Honestly, I thought success would be having enough clients to quit the repair shop and focus on programming full-time. Maybe hire 1 or 2 people to help with support calls. You never imagined $45 million? Never. I just wanted to solve interesting technical problems and get paid enough to support my family." "But you lost the company in the divorce. Lost your family too, in a lot of ways. 15 years of people thinking you were a failure. How did you handle that?" I leaned back in Linda's chair, my chair now. "I kept building things, smaller things, but I kept creating solutions to problems. Teaching helped. When you show someone how to write their first database query and watch them understand it, that's still engineering success." Kevin was quiet for a moment. "I want to learn programming." "We can start whenever you're ready." "What's the first thing you'd teach me?" "Same thing I taught my community college students. How to think through problems step by step. How to break complex challenges into simple components. How to build something that works." Kevin smiled for the first time since the will reading. "That sounds like something I should have learned from my father 20 years ago. We can start now." 6 months later, Kevin sits in my garage every Saturday morning, learning to program. The same garage where I built TechFlow's original systems in 1995, now equipped with modern development workstations and whiteboards covered in algorithm diagrams. "Show me the inventory tracking function again," Kevin says, studying the code on his laptop screen. "I want to understand how you solve the concurrent user problem." I walk him through the algorithm step by step. Kevin asks good questions now, technical questions, not business questions. He's developing programmer instincts. "It's elegant," he says. "I never realized how much math was involved in making software that just works." TechFlow is thriving under what the Dallas Business Journal called restored founder leadership. Our Q3 revenue hit $52 million. We've hired 12 new programmers and opened a second development office in Austin. Kevin proved surprisingly good at bridging technical and business functions. He speaks both languages now, enough programming knowledge to understand system capabilities, enough business experience to translate those capabilities into client solutions. "Dad, I have an idea for the client portal redesign," he said during yesterday's staff meeting. "What if we cache the database queries for repeat inventory searches? Faster response time, better user experience." Michael Davis grinned. "Kevin's becoming dangerous. Pretty soon he'll be optimizing our algorithms." Last month, Kevin was invited to speak at the Southwest Technology Leadership Conference, the same conference where Linda had presented on cloud computing innovation for 5 years. But Kevin's presentation was different. He talked about learning to appreciate technical foundations and understanding the engineering behind business solutions. After his presentation, 3 conference attendees approached Kevin with programming questions. He answered 2 of them correctly and admitted he needed to research the third. "That felt better than any business presentation I've ever given," he told me afterward. Linda's portrait still hangs in TechFlow's lobby, but the caption has been updated to Business Development Leader and Strategic Visionary.
Next to it is a new portrait, mine, labeled Founder and Chief Technology Officer.
The company timeline wall now tells the complete story. Technical innovation by David Johnson, business development by Linda Johnson, continued growth through collaborative leadership. Kevin stops by my apartment occasionally, usually bringing dinner and wanting to discuss programming concepts or business strategy. Last Tuesday, he brought Chinese takeout and a printout of code he'd written for a client reporting feature. "I think this works, but I'm not sure it's efficient," he said, spreading the code across my kitchen table. I reviewed his work, suggested 2 optimizations, and watched him implement the changes. His programming style is different from mine, more cautious, more commented, more concerned with readability than elegance. "You're becoming a good developer," I told him. "I'm becoming the son I should have been 15 years ago. The hardest part isn't behind us. It's ongoing." Kevin has to rebuild professional relationships based on his actual qualifications rather than his assumed inheritance. I have to run a major company after years of teaching part-time courses. We both have to redefine our father-son relationship around mutual respect instead of disappointment and resentment. But we're making progress. Last month, Kevin brought his new girlfriend Sarah to meet me. She's a software engineer at Microsoft, someone who appreciates both technical skills and business acumen. Kevin introduced me as my father, who founded TechFlow Systems and taught me that building something real is more important than taking credit for other people's work. The introduction made me proud, but what made me prouder was watching Kevin explain a database optimization problem to Sarah and seeing her nod with genuine professional respect. Kevin has learned that success isn't inherited. It's earned through understanding, effort, and honest contribution. And I've learned that it's never too late to teach your son what you should have taught him all along. That character isn't about circumstances, it's about what you build when no one is watching. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sometimes the most important victories happen in conference rooms, not courtrooms. Sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth.